Yeah, they are a side to be reckoned with. They are undoubtedly the favourites coming into this entire season of Challenger League. So GoSkilla have quite a task on their hands as we are finally back into some CG action. The ban phase is coming at us thick and fast. Flores and Thatcher. I almost mixed up the starts of my words there. I would have said Flores and Thatcher. Yeah,
Flores.
God.
I mean, I've done that before. I did it with Goyo and Jaeger, who is one of our bands.
Yo-yo.
Yeah.
And Geiger.
Yeah, and Geiger.
Wow.
Which is a very weird one. But either way, we got the two yellow-coloured operators on the defensive side, Jaeger and Valkyrie coming out. Not necessarily two of the most standard bans. It's certainly a lot of people like going for the Valkyrie at the moment, having a bit of a kind of ban resurgence, I guess.
Yeah.
But it makes perfect sense because we've seen so many good uses of Valkyries already today.
Yeah, she's risen in popularity as a ban over the past sort of half a year or so. Really, really powerful ban. Because she's such a powerful operator. And we saw users, for instance, leverage her to quite some power, quite some effect on Oregon earlier. But yeah, the Jaeger ban's the one that stands out the most. I mean, it's not the most off-kilter ban. We have seen Jaeger bans on Oregon in the past. He's a really potent threat. Well, I mean, he's the opposite of a threat. He's a safety net for the defenders when it comes to holding, particularly the basement. But and that is in fact where we are going to be going first off. And Mkers, the ones to ban it out against GoSkilla, it doesn't seem to have dissuaded them from taking this bottom floor site. Of course, the mirror going through certainly makes a big difference here because she is very strong down here. Again, as we saw from Users, who, yeah, was it Users that was doing all that? I feel like he was all over the place.
Yes, I believe he played him once.
Yeah.
Lots of mirror so far today.
He was cycling between the two, wasn't he?
To be fair, we've not seen her be particularly strong in a lot of these games. There have been some weird moments involving those mirror windows. Hopefully for GoSkilla, that will be a thing of the past. It won't affect them. They're bringing along the Wamai, of course, as you're almost forced onto it, opting for the Aruni as well, thanks to that Jaeger ban earlier on. And of course, that Flores on top of it, the amount of ground he can buy you, the distractions he can make, the forcing players back, it's perfect for a map like Oregon. And of course, he is removed from play by Mkers.
So someone you might want to watch out for on the side of GoSkilla. It's been an hour. We're out of practice. Is Mexicito. I'll probably just call him Mex from this point on because that's a real mouthful. But Mexicito was fantastic. Last time I saw him play, it was on Oregon, in fact, and he had a really sort of catastrophic moment, shall we say, falling down the freezer hatch as a Maverick without intending to. He opened up the hatch and fell straight through. But besides that moment of blunder, it was a fantastic game from him. On the smoke and the Maverick, both, he was just all over the place, doing exactly what you need those operators to be doing and fragging out as well. So he's definitely one to keep an eye on. This is an interesting GoSkilla roster. Basically, a big mix of EU nationalities. We do, of course, have the customary singular Brit in Madman, so I guess we're going to have to be rooting for him for this game.
I suppose we will indeed. Early round, Mkers, well, not that early round, we're almost halfway through actually. Mkers have taken the upper floor control. No roamers persist for GoSkilla in those positions. They're going to rely upon all their utility they've still got left. Mirror window, smoke canisters, and all the projectile denial. Given that there are 6 nades lined up for Mkers, and Gemini's going to be burning some of those up with stuns, and maybe some breacher rounds as well, you imagine. There's a lot still to do for these teams. It's going to come down to a chaotic blast-off.
You would certainly expect so. 5 versus 5, and it's all going to come to a head fairly soon. It seems as though Mkers, they do have Gemini positioned by the freezer stairwell just to provide some diversity to their attack. Again, we mentioned it earlier, but this is the way that Oregon has gone lately, just pinching from all sides, making sure that the defenders are constantly spinning on their heels to try and catch you out. But 45 seconds left. We hear the electrical hatch being opened. Lolo is repositioned as well outside of blue. They are getting ready for the drop back. It seems to just be bubbling up, ready to come to a boil. Sasha sends out that frag. It won't find anything, but they're just slowly inching forward. Lolo's going to burn this gate, and that should signal the beginnings of a push as the first toxic gas canister comes out.
Well, there's still a lot of delay that defenders can use. Expo taken down by a nade, but it struck back. Madman gets 2 lovely kills, but he's very vulnerable from Sasha here. A refrag in the end, but a huge man advantage. 2 versus 2 now of standing players. 3 versus 1 left. GoSkilla, too strong an advantage. I think it was left just too little too late, I'd say, from the attacking side. It did come quite close, but those early fights, Madman made the big difference.
All the pawns gradually fell, and Shermy was just there, left standing, the queen inside of Freezer. Like, held that down so well. Got the final 2 kills, absolutely essential there, and that was an unfortunate turn of events for Makers. It seems as though they did have a bit of diversity to attack their attack, but I didn't see Gemini push down Freezer. I may have missed it. Either way, it just seemed like if he did come down that way, he missed his opportunity. And after that, it was a bit more, you know, singularly directed from Makers. GoSkilla were able to direct their attention towards blue, towards electrical, towards pillars, and hold those long angles. Again, Shermy, the one really just holding from Freezer, made the biggest difference of them all. That's going to be GoSkilla going up 1 round. Obviously, defensive side of Oregon, you expect it somewhat, and that doesn't at all sort of discount Makers as a favourites going into this fight, but that will give Turco some much needed confidence. Not touch Turco, I don't know why I singled him out. GoSkilla in whole as a whole.
Certainly, they'll all be enjoying it regardless. Always good to get off to a strong start on the first day, of course, of the EU group stage in Challenger League. Now, GoSkilla, they're heading upstairs. A bit of a different lineup, but it screams delay. Absolutely in spades. The Goyo shields, again, that double combination of Wamai and Aruni to stop all those projectiles. Makers bringing slightly less in terms of lethality, but they've swapped 2 of those frag grenades out for the thermite smokes. Might help them out for a slightly more tactical execute rather than bludgeoning their way in like they tried to do the last round.
Potentially. And of course, the hard breach being of so much more importance, or, well, you know, any hard breach besides Hibana being of so much more importance on this top floor. You've got a lot of hatches to deal with for the basement push and maybe a couple of sight lines, but you really do need a very big hecking hole in either the laundry, or sorry, the attic or the closet.
Mind your language, Jerry.
Yeah, I know. This is the official broadcast. I can't be, you know,
dun, dun, dun.
I can't be effing and blinding like Des was earlier. But either way, we see this clear coming through from Makers. They're being fairly astute about it. We've got a tier 3 clear coming through from Lolo, so you can see that thermite is fully intended for the attic take, whilst there's a bit of a roam clear going on from Gemini and Scato, both of the soft destructors, essentially, from Small Tower. Aqui's getting set inside a closet, making sure he does his job, and it's just ticking the boxes, basically. A very formulaic approach to this site, and why not? GoSkilla are sitting back, they're waiting for it, they're not getting too aggressive. That Valkyrie ban means that they can't really go for any too aggressive plays. They won't have the intel scattered around to try and facilitate that, but they are making headway. They know that one is inside a kitchen. That is Mexicito on the Goyo.
Yep, work underneath and above for both teams. Mexicito now feeling a bit of pressure as Acqui gets the breach open onto his position. He doesn't have the most support down there necessarily. Vertical angles being held by Madman. He just looks at the wrong door at the wrong moment. It could all change just in a split second, especially with the attacking pattern of Makers. They do love those quick incisions. They are already taking ground across the southeast as well, controlling the bathroom, but they're going to struggle with this breach as they really haven't dealt with these electricals.
So they've spent a couple of X-Kairos on that wall, and it was very nicely tricked by Shermy. Of course, Hibana being probably the easiest to Electroclaw trick, but an Electroclaw trick in itself is somewhat difficult. The timing is not ideal for denying those breaches, and he's done a great job there. Lolo has opened up attic, but Gemini and Scato still trying to hunt down this Goyo. It's a little bit slow for my liking. They've got frags in hand and stuns. No support from above, it would seem, as Mexicito is just waiting. Gemini deciding to push up the white stairs in the meantime. Will fish out Shermy for the opening frag of the round with only 25 seconds left, but a response from the Goyo, and Gemini lit up as well. Down he goes. Fantastic emergence. He just rat in a cage, finally explodes out of it. Mexicito finding the double. Madman shuts down Lolo on that push. Acqui pushes up white stairs and finds one, but Sasha is down in the meantime. 7 seconds left. Hibana now knows where one is, takes him out. It's a 1 versus 1. Madman sitting inside of Attic, but the timer is on his side, and the Hibana cannot push through the rotate. A solid round, just about clawed through by GoSkilla. 20 seconds left, it seemed. 25 before that first kill came through, Ebac.
Noticing a pattern, we said at the end of the last round, a little bit too slow. They left it too late, and that was the case again. Just didn't deal with the Goyo, especially underneath, lingering. I think they planned to maybe make a bit of a distraction, have the player supporting, take him out, but losing that fight as well, just... it wasted time, it split attention, and elsewhere things weren't going particularly brilliantly for Mkers either, and Acqui left with a bit too much to do and not enough time to do it in. Mkers not having the best of starts. GoSkilla certainly starting very strongly. They will now opt for Meeting Hall and Kitchen as the two standard sites are already locked off.
Now, what are your thoughts, Ebac, on you meeting Kitchen as a variant? I'm certainly much more in the dining camp myself, but I just wonder what you
I'm
think.
going to have to agree.
Yeah?
I'm a dining fan, but I think it's because I haven't seen too many meeting defenses attempted by a lot of teams. It's at least in my circles, at the very least, it's a lot rarer.
It's one that sort of has yet to trickle down to some of the lower tiers of play in some ways. But
us peasants have no idea what a meeting defense is.
It gets a fair amount of play, I'd say, but it's just that I don't see the particular strength of it, because once you don't even need to take at it, you just need to prevent a defender from peeking the hatch, and suddenly you have almost full meeting control and can set down a plant. It's a very high risk strategy in my books, and it relies a lot on whoever's playing up there in Attic to basically be a nuisance and survive for as long as possible. If Mkers read into the way that GoSkilla are holding this, which is actually fairly soft on the meeting presence itself, they have got an electro-clawed stage wall and some people in Attic, but I don't know if that's enough. I feel that Mkers can slip in and get a plant down quite easily, potentially.
Have to wait and see, but things not looking ideal for Mkers at the very beginning of this game. I like the versatility we're seeing in GoSkilla's lineup. Again, that Oryx, not the first time we've seen him today here on Oregon. Even on Bank we saw him. On top of that, not quite to the best usage of his utility so far. Turco's going to be the one to change that trend, as Expo stealing any drones he can as they try and clear out the top of North Stairs Mkers.
I'd be a bit cheeky if he manages to net any of those.
Yeah.
I doubt he'd be successful. It looked like they were latched onto the ledge, and at that point the drones that were up there will probably get the notification. So, a little bit of a risky one. Perhaps a waste of those pests, because you can see Expo falling back down to the basement, and just one place, say, on that lower tower stairs would be a real pain for Mkers to have to deal with if they wanted to hunt him, but he's now got the freedom to move as he pleases. Lots of staircases to come up. In the meantime, this kitchen attack is going fairly well against Scato on this side, but this time supported by the hard breach of Acqui. They're creating the angles they need. Mexicito denying a little bit of that hard breach, but doesn't really make too much difference as the angle is still opened up deep into kitchen from range. There's a lot of moving parts right now as Expo is going to fall back towards that freezer stairs. It seems as though they are adjusting to that kitchen presence, but at the moment, Mkers, they're stationed for either, and in fact the diffuser and the majority of the bodies are on that meeting side.
Yeah, it's a strange move from GoSkilla. Maybe I'm not sure if it's lack of intel, because they do have the operators that you'd think they would know. Whatever they've decided to do, a lot of top-down presence either way. And the right time move, unfortunate time move there from Lolo to take a lot of damage from Gemini. But they can be unfortunate, not necessarily a big issue. That's a bigger issue, walking in like that and making himself a victim for Mexicito. And yes, diffuser down in an awful position. Sasha's going to try and recover things somewhat, takes down one in response. Man count even, but again, Mkers, 15 seconds left, 4 defenders to find. They get the first. Scato using the L85 to great effect, but Sasha can't replicate his teammate's form. 3 versus 3 with 5 seconds left. The defenders just need to play time. One is down, it's Turco. The diffuser not in the hands of the attackers until now. well. Gemini's planting and Acqui covers, takes down Expo. It's just left to Madman. They know he's down in the basement. An awkward position for the Kai to recover. And from what looked like an absolutely irrecoverable position for Mkers, they suddenly are in the advantage.
The post plant and Madman just missing with that C4. Now he has to climb the stairs. He's dry on intel, waiting for something to go his way. The tracers and the missed shots will give him a bit of an advantage, but it doesn't matter because Acqui will seal the deal with the follow-up, switching to that bearing 9. The trusty, reliable for Habana. And how do they keep doing it? Mkers, like... 5v5 with about 30 seconds left, and to be fair to them, they only just won that round, and they haven't won any prior, but they don't seem to have a problem with leaving it very late.
It's a bit chaotic. I must say, it was probably quite evident. I didn't think there was a way back in there.
No, me neither.
With that 3 versus 3, the positions from the defenders, they could afford to be a little bit more cautious there and not necessarily pick the angle. I think Turco was a good example on the Oryx, sitting in by the lobby area, peeking round when maybe didn't need to necessarily. Either way, you could put it down to lack of intel, lack of the right positions, whatever it is. It's a round 1 for Mkers, and that's always a good one to get off straight away. Your first round, your first win, they can build from here. They're bringing the Ying as well this round, which implies something. What does that say to you, Jerry?
I'm getting a distinct Candela-y flavour from that Ying.
Yes.
But yeah. That's my analysis. I feel as though Mkers, like, they're definitely not performing to the standard that we expect of them, considering everyone sort of, put them up here as, like, the favourites going in. They've just about scraped a win on a tertiary site. Besides that, GoSkilla have looked relatively secure. The Dorms hold, again, could have been a little bit more secure than that, but they did what they needed to. And Mkers, they're perhaps suffering from a little bit of slowness. This is Oregon as well. This is traditionally that map where good teams go to lose. Like, anything can happen here, and right now we're seeing GoSkilla at the moment have a bit of an edge. It's probably too early to say.
You know what I'm seeing on the left side of my screen that I love and I'm also terrified by? 8 frag grenades.
Oh, that's not right.
Alongside the Candelas.
It's got to be 6. That's the UI
What?
bug, right? Yeah, because you've got.
Oh right,
Yeah,
of course.
that happens way too often.
My bad. Yes, but there still are 6 combined with the 3 Candelas on top of that, and some stuns to boot from Acqui. A lot of projectiles offered here. You can see why they've banned out that Jaeger. They clearly have a plan to flush players out of positions in just a moment of absolute explosive glory. Not quite found that yet necessarily, but they've seen that this roam is there isn't one. They've just taken in.
Yeah, I mean, you've got the Iruni and the Wamai to try and slow down the pace of all those throwables you mentioned, but you can't stem the tide of what the Makers are bringing. It's just a shame that at the moment they haven't shown us any indication of sort of the prowess they have to coordinate and execute with that utility.
I've been impressed by their drone play so far.
They have been very
constantly
thorough.
got so many. They've got so many present even at the end of rounds, despite mutes and mozzies that like.
Yeah, you're halfway
even
through
if
the
you
round.
argue he wasted some of his pests in the previous round, but either way, that's certainly helping them out in the later moments, knowing exactly what to do.
Yeah,
but if you're 5 versus 5 in one of those chaotic scenarios, then who's going to be on the cams to tell you that sort of thing?
It's a good point. It was something that Nello mentioned earlier in his interview, was that when they were pushing 5 versus 5 earlier, M&M this is, they didn't have anyone on cam, so they didn't have any idea that a flank was happening, and that's just sometimes a bit of a disadvantage that can happen when you get down to those final 30 seconds or so. The intel really is in the favour of the defence, who could, have it passively with, say, these mirror windows. But speaking of those, they are being dealt with. Expo is dealing with the problem that's dealing with them, though, shooting off those X-Kairos pellets, and Shermie is protected by a couple of magnets, but those are the ones that are just going to be burned through, and soon they will dissipate, soon they'll be removed from the game, and we'll have a full screen of white here. Oh no, that's not how you want to leverage those throwables though. Scato with the opening frag of the round onto his teammate. Acqui goes down.
Wow, I'm interested to see what Gemini does here. A lot of players grouping up for Mkers. A lot of Candela reliance potentially. If everyone's going to be blinded, Lolo's down. Makasito is just playing very comfortably on this mirror window. Picks up a double. The mirror gets one herself. And surely it's simple enough for Madman to finish it off. He is having a great game, but GoSkilla altogether are looking pretty much on top right now.
Those Mkers bodies were literally flying. I don't know if you saw some of the ragdolls inside the laundry. It was an absolute mess in there. And that's the problem. If you don't devote enough time to the site push, they had so much time spent clearing the top 2 floors, and they got down to the bottom one and had about a minute to sort of scope things out, remove key pieces of utility. They still had, mirror windows in front of them. I don't think we saw a toxic gas canister come out until the last 30 seconds or so. That is essentially GoSkilla sitting pretty. They're just playing, year 1 siege right now. Turtle up on basement and wait for these kills to come to them. It was pretty standard stuff. I think you're right
Can't
to highlight
it when it's working.
Yeah, you're right to highlight the drone play of Mkers, because it's very difficult to find any other redeeming factor from them right now.
The plan seems to be wrong. I'm not sure it's necessarily the execution here. That whatever it is there's something behind the scenes that's not quite working out there. Whether they're just starting slowly. We've seen a lot of games. Helios were in this position with the 3-1 against them, and that extended to a 5-2, and then they suddenly became a different team. Maybe we'll see something like that from Mkers. I would not rule that out, certainly, especially today. Given what we've seen, but right now they look a far cry from what they have been in other tournaments so far. I do like the switch up, the first Nomad of the day that we've seen, alongside the first Warden on the opposition side. We saw practically no Candela action through that round, which was very surprising when Gemini did bring that operator, and Sherm is at least ready for anything else. Blinding.
Wow.
The only option was Acqui stuns, and Gemini's got them as well, but that's half of them dealt with at the very least.
A massive loss right there for Mkers, losing Habana straight away, and Acqui, who, to his credit, has been gunning more than the rest of his team so far. And Habana's so important on this site, but more to the point, that is the earliest opening frag we've seen. I don't think just in this game, but possibly today. There haven't been too many spawn peaks or anything. That happened within about 20 seconds, or 15 seconds rather, of the start of the action phase. So a nice little change up there from GoSkilla, who have been, relatively content to sit back and wait for the most part. They've decided to keep Mkers on their toes, and we are harping on about Mkers looking a little bit weak. The addendum to that, I suppose, is that this is a defender-sided map, and they are taking their time to settle into things seemingly, but you can't really afford to be taking your time to do that. This is, like we mentioned, a very punishing format. Best of ones, and just the 3 games that could determine whether you stay in CL or whether you drop out straight away. And they are not making a good go of it at this moment in time.
Ooh, GoSkilla truly are showing. They've got some bravado, they've got some guts about them at the start of this game, going for such peaks. They won't be intimidated anytime today. They're certainly worrying their opposition early on in the game. Still a long way to go. And Megacito, he's very close to a lot of these players nearby, with this roam over by the north. Seems some readjustments as the breach is open inside of Attic. That's one angle Mkers can push, put some pressure onto Expo, holding that spot inside of Attic. But with very little master presence, and yet no ingress towards that kitchen area downstairs. Scato's only doing that now. It's gonna come low on time. How many times can we say it, Jerry?
I don't know. We're starting to sound like broken records here, but another C4 coming through. This time Mexicito takes out Lolo in a 3 versus 5. This is looking pretty desperate here for Mkers. Scato goes down as well as Shermy gets a bit aggressive and is rewarded with that aggression with a kill. He knows another is down the bottom of the stairs. In fact, no, he's misinformed. There's no one there, but he peeks big window and gets that anyway. A triple kill on the round for Sherman. He's left Gemini high and dry now, just playing from this window, who can't even hit his shots. Oh no! Caught in 1080p, I guess, but the run out comes through and he's he hits his own Nomad air jab as Madman goes for the jump out, triggers it and lands the knife kill. Oh god, that's embarrassing.
Brilliant. We love to see it. Absolute chaos, but again, it goes in the favor of GoSkilla. Incredible individual work from Sturm in particular, Sherm even, during that round. But a lot of it was done via the setup alone. GoSkilla aren't doing anything particularly inventive. They aren't doing anything...
They're sitting back.
Bizarre like we've seen in the rest of the games today. No bans and bizarre open setups, that sort of thing. It's quite standard. Makers just aren't clicked into gear. That's fine for a good few rounds, but once you got that 4-1 up against you, they need this 4-2 going into the split to have just a tiny bit more of a cushion, assuming that they've got some very solid defenses to come up.
So Makers are a pretty good all-round team, and that's,
Yes.
putting it lightly, but they have always lent somewhat on the strength of their entry and the strength of their fragging prowess. That's fine. You look at the best teams in the world right now, and they do exactly that. But it's a bit worrying to see how... this is fantastic from GoSkilla's perspective, how well prepared they seem to be to deal with that style of play. They are very, very passive, and almost kind of... It's a bit disappointing for me to see Makers take so much time deliberating over the early round, because they actually have, the ability and the opportunity in front of them to just take that ground very quickly and start, executing onto site a bit sooner. I say that as now it looks as though GoSkilla have completely changed up their tune. This is a bit of an anomaly because we've got the tertiary site in front of us, that meeting kitchen site to play out, but... Yeah, I'm a bit disappointed by Makers because they should be able to read into this. They should know that a lot of teams have come into this tournament thinking we are the biggest threat. They will prepare for us. And GoSkilla, they've prepared for Makers, and it's really showing. Makers do not have any grasp on this game right now.
Not some reason to worry for the Makers fans out there, but still, this is the site that they've won already. They've shown that they can do it. It was unorthodox, to say the very least, but that push in from the north side certainly worked. And looking at their setup right now and where the players are positioned, where they're droning, it looks like a relatively similar peak, but with Acqui, he's all alone inside of the garage area. Players above him opening angles. He somehow manages to sneak out there without conflict. Very passive from GoSkilla. That's... quite admirable there, actually, to just decide to waste the time and scare him off instead.
Yeah, they could have overcommitted there, potentially, and we might be saying, oh, that's a gamble, but they did quite nice work to just force him back. Sasha will find Expo, and Mozzie going down. That's one of the first times that Makers have actually gained an entry frag before the final sort of 20 seconds or so. So this is pretty important stuff for the pace of the round to make sure that they have an advantage going forward. That drone, dispensable. There's another one nearby to track the movements of Madman. You can see Gemini just hopping onto it as he gets the support of Turco right now. Lolo trying to get this breach up. Mexicito trying to meet it right on the opposite side. He's playing very close to the Aruni. A lot of bodies stacked here for Makers on this tower side. A lot more than last time where they had a sort of 3-2 split between here and the kitchen. This time far more bodies up close. But Mexicito capitalizing on Acqui's, slight overzealousness to get that open. No cover, and the footholes already open by the Maverick. Gets the Aruni that kill for free. She will back on up. 4 versus 4. Can see more feet. No way, Lolo. You shouldn't be making the same mistake twice. Makers. Turco goes and gets Sasha as well. Gemini taking flak outside, but will stem that run out. A bit of aggression there from Turco, and 2 versus 3 now. But with 30 seconds left and the man disadvantage, this is still GoSkilla's round to lose.
It is. Makers won it from this position when it seemed like they might not be able to. 5 seconds left. It was chaos. Scato's pushed in, but has fallen. 2 kills come out for the defensive side, most importantly, to take the round. A much better execution at the very end of that defense to see GoSkilla to a 5-1 advantage at the split. Makers have got to pull out some strong defenses here, nice and quickly, get some form going, or they are in big trouble. GoSkilla, this is very impressive, and of course we expected this. This is the group of death, of course.
Yeah.
Within the EU Challenger League groups. Sorry, I get confused every time I say that because I don't know why I'm here. But, GoSkilla really showing that they are a team to be messed with, and that anyone in this group, it's only 3 games. You can even fluke your way through it. Not that that's the case in this particular instance.
Right now I'm looking at this, I'm thinking the only way I can justify it such a kind of misrepresentation of the power levels of these teams going into this is maybe the fact that GSA hides some incredible teams within it. Like, I mean, teams competing in GSA, right? Like, they've got to contend with Secret, with Rogue, with G2. Like, proper EUL sides. I mean, to be fair, Secret are now vying for survival at the end of this CL run.
Of course.
But irrespective of that, GoSkilla are a team that, even in the presence of all these titans, managed to place third in that season of GSA. Mkers, okay, sure, they won PG Nats, but that's PG Nats. To put it bluntly, that's PG Nats. And Mkers, yes, they did make it to SI. They did fantastic. They took best of ones of TSM, for instance, and other teams. I believe possibly G2. If I probably made a mistake there, but either way, they have been, proven as a fantastic squad. That said, that is, maybe it was a flash in the pan. Maybe we're seeing a better GoSkilla side. Maybe it's too early to say though, because we are on that second half of this map, and we do have to kind of, fend off our assumptions a bit early. Yeah, the groups will tell.
We'll see.
Defensive split for Mkers. That's the main thing. They need to rally up here.
They certainly do. That's the negative Jerry. What's our positive Jerry thinking right now? The happy-go-lucky guy.
The happy-go-lucky guy? I mean, for who? Yeah. For Mkers, right? You want me to be happy about Mkers? About them getting a 1-5 split?
I mean, no, I just mean maybe GoSkilla or
I don't know.
Anything else.
It's very difficult to force me to be happy. You should know this by now. I'm a very negative Nancy. I'm not. That goes against everything Jerry that I've ever experienced, but okay. Either way, GoSkilla, I'm quite happy about this lineup because they're opting for the Candelas of the Ying, which we saw Gemini bring out to no effect. A quick move from Mkers, they net 2. Akwi gets them very quickly. The Candelas will set off, despite the fact Expo is dead, and potentially buy his team some time just to calm down a little bit and figure out where they are. The quick move from them certainly didn't work out because they've just lost 2 men for it. Thankfully, they've still got 3 remaining, and a lot of time as well to reconsider what this execute should be. They've got the hard breach remaining and that extra intel that Turco can offer with the Geminis on top of it. So round certainly not lost, but a good step forward for Mkers. They need a way through here, and that could be the opening. Mex lands that nade onto the jammer, and Akwi's there to try and actually impact trick. He managed to pull off a decent one there, catching all but one of those pellets. And this is a sightline that Shermie wants, but no entryway. Akwi does go down, but he has done his job admirably, buying a lot of valuable time here for Mkers on the defense, and it's still 4 up for them against the 3 encroaching attackers. Turco doing a little bit of intel work as Lolo finds Shermie elsewhere. Mex finds one in response. Lolo with a second in a row, and now the Mav all alone against 3 defenders that are up, and a living drone searching out on this bottom floor. 52 seconds left for him, so still plenty of time to try and get something, but he may not know that he's got someone right behind him. Gemini waiting. Oh, very nicely done there, expecting the movement from Akwi, or maybe just waiting for a freebie, and he gets just that. Sasha, though, has been rezzed in the meantime, so a proper 1v3 now with 30 seconds left. Diffuser in no man's land, and only really White Stairs as an entry point.
That's the main point of contention, is with the diffuser so far away, he's just going to have to find all the kills, and the defenders, surely knowing that, and now his position, should just play it safe. They can bide their time. Now that he has the diffuser, he might be able to dance a bit on it. Split presence across from White. He finds the first, but surely and securely, Sasha is there to finish him off from behind. Very simple, very nicely done by GoSkilla. We move on to round 8, and we are already this quick. Not GoSkilla, even Mkers. We are so far not quite getting the best use of all the gadgets we've seen today, but at the very least, Mkers showing that they can offer something very strong up on the defense. I think the general setup and the positioning was a lot more comfortable than we saw on the attack, where it seemed a little bit less secure. Here, they certainly know what they're doing. They're taking it down to the laundry basement site. Looking at this lineup as well, it is quite the standard.
It's very turtley for the defense. Besides that Oryx, you maybe could expect to see Gemini and Akwi lurking about, doing a bit of roam play together with the Romy and T5 combos. Fantastic pair of weapons to be taking. And of course, Oryx on this map, so maneuverable. He's exactly what you want if you're going to be playing a little bit fast and loose. You mentioned earlier, I think, GoSkilla, you said they were insecure on their attacks. I don't know if that's fair. They felt, you know, they were secure, they were thorough. It's just they were slow, right? They just took a bit too much time here.
Oh, Mkers.
Yeah, Mkers. Sorry, they on defense, they seem a little bit more at home, it seems. They're playing the map a lot more. That you can see, you know, they're tagging in and out. They have this kind of philosophy where they want to roam in pairs, but at the same time, they'll, you know, trade in, trade out different positions, and sometimes you'll see them jump in and out. It's quite dynamic, it's very fluid, it's really entertaining Siege to watch, quite honestly, and they will catch teams out occasionally with these sort of plays. But GoSkilla, we're yet to see how they tackle this basement. Again, we mentioned earlier on that Laundry Supply has become a little bit harder to defend in recent times, and right now GoSkilla going for a very traditional full roam.
Did he hear that?
Oh no! Gemini! Pop up, you know, that's not a game of whack-a-mole you want to be losing.
Nope, certainly not. Man disadvantage already for Mkers at the start of this round. Gemini's roam attempt, yeah, it's just a bit too vulnerable when you're not necessarily sure what to expect with any sort of roam clear attempt. Poor timing, bit unfortunate. Either way, GoSkilla will take it, and also half of Scatto's health as he sticks his nose up north stairs, probably a little bit too far. Takes half his health out. GoSkilla already taken the majority of the rest of the map. Lolo is still in position over on the south currently, over by Freezer stairs. But you imagine with the man disadvantage, he will probably find his way back quite soon.
Shermy taking out Akwi, and once again...
Where was that?
Well, Shermy's right here, so...
Oh, it was, yeah.
I'm not too sure. Oh,
I don't know why Akwi's in that position. It was quite a strange move.
I suppose a man down, you want to try and get a little bit aggressive to try and reassert it, and going for the Hibana. If you see that opening, you take it, but yeah, seems he lost his one, and that's going to be putting Mkers at 2-man disadvantage here. This is not great, but they do still have the tools they need to hold them off. C4 in pocket and 3 toxic gas canisters, as well as those mirror windows set and ready to be utilized, and we have seen just how powerful they can be so far today. But GoSkilla with that man advantage should have the edge here. Electrical hatch opened, and they're prepping for the drop. Expo getting a bit more of a direct entryway towards... Oh, it's actually going to construction, as I said. I thought he might be going to backstairs. Either way, they're just placing their pieces all round, and why not for GoSkilla? They have time. Expo peeking on out, doesn't expect the aggression to be met with him from construction, and Sasha with a second swing will clean it up, but Mex has forced his way into Freezer. Actually collects Lolo, but whiffs all the shots onto the smoke. In the meantime, Scatto takes Madman down. There's 2 versus 3 here, but with 23 seconds left, it's defender favored, surely, even with the man disadvantage, especially now as Sherm has been picked up. Mex on very low health. Turco trying to send a nade in range, but it's caught by the Wamai Magnet, and Sasha takes out Mex. Scatto with the second. Mkers, despite going 2 men down early on, they turn it on a dime and clean up on this basement hold.
Wow. Very nice turnaround from Mkers. Got pretty close there, but certainly both teams capable of taking it, especially from that 2 versus 2. Low health all around. You think maybe with those nades as well, just catching a lick of damage on someone moving from a position, the round can swing for GoSkilla. It's close, but it is still going in the favor of Mkers. Is this going to be the 3rd massive comeback today? Who knows? It looks like it might be. They're starting to look like a slightly more formidable Mkers.
They are. Are they EUL side in the making? I don't know. That was a very ham-fisted pun. I will refrain from doing so in the future. Anyway, ham-fisted puns is what you're here for me for, right?
Yeah.
Like, if you've never seen me before, that's what I do. It's awful. I'm sorry. Meeting again. I mean, we've seen one successful meeting defense, to be fair. Let's give the site some credit. Mkers going for an interesting setup here. They've got that shield deployed right by rear stage with one half of the wall open, so they do want to play and hold on to tower, it seems. So this is an interesting philosophy. Does mean that you're stacked quite heavily on that side in terms of utility. Possibly opens you up to a kitchen push, but Sasha completing his setup. We'll see who is, you know, tasked with holding that position once the pieces have settled, but it looks as though investing fairly, you know, a fair amount of utility on the top floor as well, as we see those reinforcements go out. Akwi is going to be the one in the suicide spot. Top of T3. He's not expected to do much besides get kills, shoot drones, fall back. Maybe, if he's lucky, he gets away with his life. But Expo and Turco going to be entering from beneath.
And Elderbrain said, prod mute Jerry. I agree with this. Either way, early round, GoSkilla checking out what they're dealing with. Quite a lot of intel denial from Mkers, the Mute Mozzie combo, as we've already seen today. Making good use of that. Already GoSkilla quickly in underneath. Turco, he's being droned out in front, despite being on that Gemini roll himself. See if he can catch...
Sorry, you threw me off there because there's a player called Gemini, and I was like, how is he
of course. Yeah, that's a bit weird. Can be potentially confusing.
Continue.
Either way. His utility of the Gemini, and he'll get to use that later on. But when it comes to the site, maybe not so much. So directly countered by especially that mute late on in.
This is a potential weakness of this site as well. You do leave yourself open to a lobby rush strat to get that plant down very quickly inside a meeting. And with an early frag like that, it only facilitates that further. Turco managing to hunt him down. The proxy alarm, very nice early warning system for said rush. And now a couple of guns trained in the direction of Mexicito, but he'll send a nade up. First one caught by one magnet, but the second one may well connect with Sasha. Ooh, just a little bit undercooked there. That nade was slightly raw, but Mkers are slapping back with the defense. 2 kills go their way, but Madman finds Akwi in a 3 versus 3 now. Still about 70 seconds left to get a whiff of a player retreating up the top stairs. Scatter is that one on the top floor. Opens up an angle down towards the bottom stairwell inside of Laundry. Shermie holding that diffuser. Does have an opportunity to try and get the plant down. This is all action stations right now. Action all over the map. Sasha finds Madman, and now we're in a 2 versus 3. GoSkilla need to try and get this plant down.
Scato's newly open position really helped him make sure that Sherm had to back out of that position. Is now going around to support Turco, but it does mean that they lack the vertical control. They have very little pressure, so anyone within the site is quite comfortable. Again, Shermie takes the damage from Scato, running through the same spot without checking, no gun up. And it's simple enough for him to be picked out. The second follows. Round taken by the defensive side. GoSkilla, quite a few missteps throughout these rounds, and we're seeing a very defender-sided Oregon coming out today.
They seemed a little unsure of themselves, and the strange thing is, we did make that asterisk that Mkers, they looked a bit disappointing on the attack, but it is a defender-sided map. They had enough regiment to their attacks that, clearly they were good enough. It's clear they had a plan coming. It was just that they were a bit slow. GoSkilla on that attack in particular looked completely lost, and that is a tertiary site. That is the one that you really need to be getting under your belt. They are, 5-4 up, but realistically, we see Mkers potentially take 2 or 1 of the next 2 rounds, and GoSkilla have to win a couple, right? They have to win somewhere that isn't a tertiary site, most importantly, on these attacks, and that so far hasn't been the case. They haven't won any of them. This is a bit rough for them, and we're seeing now Mkers getting ready, setting up on this top floor. They've got this extension into the sort of trophy master bedroom area with a runic gates. I do like seeing this. I feel like it's a great way of playing this site. GoSkilla didn't have an answer for it the first time round. Have they had time to kind of adapt to it? They've had their tactical timeout since the last time they attacked here, so maybe they do.
Didn't seem to help though, losing 2 rounds straight after it, quite bizarrely. The momentum very much going against them. They need to put a full-on stop right after this. They get the 1 round, they're on match point. I mean, both teams are still very close to that 7 at the moment. We're not too far away from calling this. We are in round 10. In the final game here in Group D, vying for that top position. Of course, what was the... I've suddenly forgotten what the result was of the other match in Group D. Was it 7-5?
It was a 7-5. It was that complete reverse sweep against Gamma Gaming that Hellraisers managed to deal. Sasha takes out Sherman. I was expecting to see the opening frag go the way of GoSkilla after that yellow ping came out onto the Iruni, but it just seemed they didn't capitalize on the intel, unfortunately. So, diffuser dropped, but it's his certainly recoverable. The main thing is you've lost that Habana, and that only gives you one option for breaching. There goes a sledge as well, no more, and well, only a few more nades. In fact, tons more nades. What am I talking about? They've got hella nades on this attack lineup. Nades aren't the problem. The problem is losing bodies, and 3 versus 5. We saw Mkers turn around the 3v5 on their laundry defense, but when you're on the attacking side, it's much harder to circumvent that couple-man deficit.
Minute and a half plus a tiny bit of breathing room on top of that for GoSkilla to figure out what they want to do. Of course, a lot of these moments are coming down to either Shermie or Mexicito. Rocking 14 kills now as he extends it. Takes out Sasha with an inventive frag grenade. That 2-man disadvantage now narrowed ever so slightly. Still a long way to go, especially as Akwi uses the Roni to great effect to eventually get the refrag onto the Maverick. So no more extra breaching options. If they did want angles GoSkilla, they're going to have to go quite direct. Madman and Turco still currently split up. Now they are pinching towards this Kid Storm's position. Turco falls. Madman left by himself. Position known as well outside. 50 seconds left.
Turco had the jump on Akwi there as well. That was fantastic reactions from the Aruni player to finally put himself on double digits. He's been a source of kills for this team for a while. It's nice to see Sasha picking up where Lolo perhaps is lacking. You expect to see him up on this scoreboard quite high, but I'm just stalling here because Madman is sitting really in a horrible position. Scato finally claims his life as he throws himself into the Lion's Den, tries to get that frag, but met with a hail of bullets. So Umai to collect it, and Mkers, they finally closed that gap. 4 rounds in a row puts them on even footing.
I mean, I would say, like I have previous times, who saw this coming, but I think most of us expected it to some degree after today's events. Very strong play from Mkers. This defensive lineup that they have offered up is fantastic. They seem pretty much in control in the way that GoSkilla were. The fact that they're on the defense now gives them that ever so slight advantage because they've experienced that domination against them, and now that they're on top, they will not squander it. You imagine they will certainly not wish to. Try not to let it happen. They've returned now down to laundry and supply down in the basement. They're bringing the castle along, which I quite like this time. A full mix-up of operators. Bring the Echo, which we haven't seen so far in this game, as well as Vigil. Akwi has been gunning very strongly, especially with some of the early round play. That seems like a very smart decision to me.
I'm trying to make sense of this castle setup that we saw Lolo going for. I feel like he's just gone, I'm going to go castle. I'm going to put barricades and holes in places. I really don't see... One went down on the garage door, and then he opened a rotate right next to it into meeting. Hasn't barricaded the lobby double into meeting. It just seems a little bit random from what I can discern. Maybe, sometimes that is a nice strat as a castle. You just make one particular area of the map your playground and confuse the attackers.
Try and dispel people from going towards garage, maybe. It's quite a nice entry point.
There's the
usually.
double. Okay.
Whatever it is, not working out necessarily brilliantly. For the attacking
literally
side. Sorry,
Akwi throws time.
Yes. It was a moment devoid of time. Akwi getting the better of Mexicito as I gather my bearings.
You know what that was like? That was like that. It was in this moment.
Yeah, the 100% was. If somebody could actually do that, that'd be hilarious. Either way, it's an advantage for Mkers, and they're starting now GoSkilla to use some of their utility, and we can see the Candela play throughout today hasn't been fantastic, but the Dockerby will give a little bit of information, auditory or otherwise, towards the 4 remaining attackers on what exactly they are dealing with. Turco will be certainly aware via multiple modes of intel on Scato's position and dispatches with him perfectly.
No one to refrag either. Castle at range, or rather Akwi, that is the Vigil. No, sorry, that is the castle, I was mistaken. Akwi lost a little bit of health in this engagement on the top floor at the same time, so it's all action stations all round. We can see the castle being pinched. Shermie takes out Akwi, but Lolo does get one for his troubles. This roaming castle with his playground on the middle floor is confusing the hell out of GoSkilla, and he will fall back to site, having managed to salvage something for this defense here. 3 versus 3 with about 90 seconds to go. Sorry, about 75. In fact, I can't do quick maths. This looks like Mkers could hold on to it.
Well, you clearly can't count, but thankfully Lolo can count on his shooting, extending the advantage for Mkers as this push comes in from GoSkilla. They have limited time and limited options as well. The final Candela will go out from Expo, but he doesn't quite push. He's maybe waiting for someone to expose themselves or run out of a spot. Sherm drops to take one and then drop even further to the ground, just left to Expo inside of Freezer. I'm not 100% sure that Mkers know his position right now, so he's looking to maybe catch off Sasha as he does lock off Freezer. It does seem like they know Expo's position here. He's got 2 smoke grenades to try and buy himself a little bit of visual cover. Is there really a way in for him? He's on very low health. 70 bullets loaded in that LMG, and in he swings. He's just relying on sound practically. It will work against him. Very strong play from Mkers to take the round and to take us on to match point. They were 5-1 down at the split.
They were. I mean, we've seen our fair share of comebacks today on this stream and on others, but this is definitely up there. Mkers riding home. There was a world where we saw that Ying clutch. He's certainly the right operator for the job in a 1 versus 2. You've got smoke grenades, you've got candelas. You can mold that bottom floor to your liking and take the fights, you know, whenever you like, really, with the right kind of advantage. But those toxic babes were just delaying for long enough that it forced the Ying into, you know, having to make a bit of a play, trying to walk through her own smoke, in fact, and that's never really the best idea, unfortunately. We see a switch this time around to the Monty, perhaps slightly more direct approach for Expo. It hasn't been working this Ying so far, unfortunately, for him. Sitting on 1 and 9, not what we expect. Expo, of course, a very experienced player on GoSkilla. One of the only players with a brief bit of tier 1 experience, but it doesn't really matter at the moment. Look at that, though. Mexicito on 14 kills.
It's bizarre.
I mean, for a support player, he always puts up the frag. It's fantastic.
Yeah, zero IQ in the Twitch chat pointed out. I feel like there's something wrong with GSK's support being their top fraggers at the moment. It's exactly right. It seems a little bit imbalanced, a little bit bizarre. And Expo, instead, opting as he's decided he's not going to go for the killing front. He'll let his teammates do it for him, and he will offer a bit more intel. I do love seeing the Monty. I think he's even rarer than Clash nowadays. You very, very rarely see a Monty. Let's see if they can use it. He has been a lot
weaker. He has been a lot weaker since the way they changed his shield, so he's not quite the, you know, the Titan in 1 versus 1 situations. You can actually get in close and melee that shield and cause some problems. And yeah, it's a tough world for Monty mains nowadays, but he has his uses, and in a bit more of a coordinated setup, you know, in a pro play scenario like this is, that he has his uses and he's a bit more effective, arguably. We see a decent early round from GoSkilla. They haven't really wasted too many drones. They've managed to claim some key ground on what is a meeting defense. We haven't touched on this yet. They have managed to force players out of Attic, but we can see Lolo is toying with the idea of trying to reclaim it. Drone being set up there by the Maverick, and really they're just keeping intel, keeping an eye on things. But this meeting hold looks pretty formidable in itself. They've got the Aruna gates and the shields waiting, just staring down that T3 area. Sherby will find Acqui as a good entry kill there onto a key fragger for the Makers. Now they can begin to get this breach come down. The Monty will be incredibly useful here, but it is being jammed, it would seem. Can't quite get the angle onto the jammer, but it's only a matter of time, really, before that's dealt with, and we have a clean entry into sight.
Ooh, Madman's nade might be catching off Sasha here if he's over-aggressive. Backs away as Expo takes that spot from him. Forced back a little bit by the smoke canisters. A lot of utility directly battling against each other now. A nice advert for Siege, I'd guess, at this point in the round. A 5 versus 4 advantage, though, still for GoSkilla. A good amount of time they've still got on top of it to go for this execute. Expo's in a great position to cover, potentially, if Sherm can go for this plant, and he will do. Is there enough support? Players drop for either side. 3 versus 4, still an advantage for GoSkilla. 50 seconds left. The Finker boost will also get that little bit more health. that they could feel comfortable, but no, the flank comes round from Lolo. He sneaks underneath and finds the players. They covered from above, but they didn't watch enough angles. Gemini takes Turco, but Scato is down elsewhere. A 2 versus 2. The Thinker boost only applying for Chermi at this point. One still remaining in pocket once it recharges for this final push. It's tough to call, but Mkers, they're sitting on the precipice of victory here. They drop into sight, actually, GoSkilla. They managed to find a way in, and only Gemini is there. The barricades are in the way for Lolo. It's going to be a tough re-entry. Gemini gets towards the diffuser. Madman has to swing and get this in response. Where is Lolo? He's coming. He's dropping down the hatch, but down he goes, and so does his teammate. A double from Madman keeps GoSkilla in the game for another round at the very least.
The British mad lad himself keeps us in the stream as well. We have overtime now. 6-6. What a play. What a rotation from GoSkilla right there. At the death to decide we're going to flip the switch, go all the way around to kitchen, get a plant down there. Fantastically well held in the post plant. What committal from the Thermite, who earlier in the round maybe burst out laughing by taking a smoke canister to the face. One of my favourite moments all day. That 5 damage, you know, you got to get the chip in, but it didn't matter. Fantastic stuff there from GoSkilla. Their first attacking round, they needed it. We're on overtime now, and it is GoSkilla with the defensive advantage in this overtime. They have 2 defenses to play with. I am actually gobsmacked because I think that is Maker's choice. I think Maker's opted to go for attack first on overtime. I will have to double check that, but if they have, then that is quite something.
Yeah, that's it's not the most fantastic decision. I'm just flabbergasted. I'm confused by Madman. If GoSkilla end up winning this today, a huge portion of that goes down to Madman. His impact at the very beginning of the match was very strong. Disappeared a little in the middle as GoSkilla have had a rough patch. But on that final round, after losing so many consecutive rounds, 5 in a row, match point suddenly against them, and then he pulls out a 1 versus 2 with a few seconds left in a very tough position. Fantastic. It's that kind of goal that can... I mean, that's why they're here at this level of competition in Challenger League group stage. They want to move further. They've guaranteed themselves at least overtime. Jerry, what do you actually know what the point system's like? Did they get...
So it is a 3-2-1-0 point system. They will... Now, both teams have actually guaranteed 1 point here. Neither will finish top of the group.
No.
That accolade goes to Hellraisers, so congratulations to Hellraisers, who now are sitting top of the group after day run. Top of the group of death as well, no less. So that's pretty impressive. I think a lot of our expectations of this group have been flipped over, and I'm all for it. This is exactly what we wanted from the group of demise, the group of devastation. I'm wild about it. I'm excited. This is the overtime we wanted. I do have to correct myself though, because I made an assumption, and that assumption was that Oregon was Maker's map pick. It was in fact GoSkilla's, and Maker's opted to attack first in regulation. So GoSkilla are the ones that have chosen to defend here on overtime, and I mean they may well be rewarded with that decision.
Yeah, I mean, if the rest of it's anything to go by, then they're certainly in good stead starting out on the defensive side. They're opting for the basement. It's been relatively secure for them. So, some back and forth moments, it's come relatively closer. 2 versus 2 it came down to the last time we were here, but they still won it out regardless. So long way to go, even now that we're in overtime.
Guaranteed another 2 rounds at least. That's the tasty thing for us. For us entertainment addicts, I suppose. We want to see as much as possible, and this is what we've got. So, what is happening here? Makers again on their attack. Let's cast our minds back to how they took these attacks in the first half. They were uncharacteristically slow, uncharacteristically devoid of entry frags for a team that are so proficient at doing so. They are employing the Monty, perhaps to kind of speed up that process this time round, and they seem to have made faster progress here. GoSkilla once again reverting to this very restricted, very turtle-based setup. 5 on site, and why not? They've got all the utility down there. But Makers, they may well have got the memo that they need to speed things up, because that is going to be the difference maker here. And I hope that it makes a difference, because otherwise they are just going to be looking back at this Playday and ruining the times that they did not make a quick entry.
Yeah, hopefully a bit of a better use of the Ying right now, especially with the Monty on board, which has been to relatively mixed reception so far in his usage.
First time we've seen Makers do it, though.
Yes, certainly. So we'll see what they have to offer above their opposition. A nade attempted by Lolo, but the first kill will come for Madman. He's still continuing his spree, shutting down a very strong player in Akwi and Scatto as he moves aggressively up the north stairs. So many different players and positions for him to watch by himself, and he takes down everyone. His teammate joins in. Down goes Gemini as well. 2 versus 5 for Makers. Such a strong bit of play from GoSkilla.
GoSkilla are just skilling on him right now. Expo takes a bit of damage, but Mex grabs his second of the round, finding Sasha all up to Lolo now. It's pretty much impossible here. He will try his darndest to gather some exit frags, but with 24 seconds left and a lot of flat coming his way, it's Expo who will seal it with a flawless round for GoSkilla. They were right to come down to this basement evac.
They certainly were. It's a slap in the face for Makers. So close in that 2 versus 1 in the previous round to winning the whole thing. It goes to overtime. You get flawless. Now all the pressure on winning this defense. I'm quite confident, as imagine everyone watching this game so far, that they could probably win it with a relative amount of ease. It's just going to come down to the round afterwards if they do manage to do that as well. GoSkilla, now is the time. They have that extra round advantage here. Nobody really expects them right now to win this round. That's when you put something out there, you go for a strategy, you rock it. We're heading to Storm's main hall, and that Monty, only momentarily a Glaz. It looks like he's going to stick out with the Monty. To be fair, Glaz, not the most bizarre operator on a site like this with the long angles.
No, we saw a team do an incredible, devotion, a kind of advert for Glaz on Oregon. I'm trying to recall exactly who it was. It was the team that did a crazy solo run that nobody knew about in the final EUCL Open quals.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I don't know.
Wish I could remember.
Let us know, chat, if you remember.
Yeah, they had a fantastic Glaz strat on every single site on this map, it seemed, and it was terrifying. He was a brilliant Glaz main. But either way, we don't have Glaz here, so we'll stop.
SSG, I don't think it was SSG.
No, it wasn't SSG. They weren't doing EUCL quals, unfortunately. I would have loved to see it, but no. I think that lot had better things to do at that time. Madman has come alive for the second half of the game. I mean, he's the reason we're in overtime.
Yes.
And this game has max OT written all over it. I would not put it past Madman to gather a couple more multi-kills and be the difference maker, because sometimes that's all it needs to be, is a hot player on one of your sides. You've got that round advantage. The adrenaline is pumping. That dopamine is hitting, because you are potentially about to best, an SI qualifying team. This is a tier 1 team, arguably, in a best of 1 that could be so crucial for your EUCL hopes. And Madman, he does exactly that, finding the opening frag onto Akwi.
It's the same as the last round. It's the strong killing players, the players who have been making the impact kills, certainly in the big rounds. Usually Madman and Akwi, they're certainly 2 of the better ones so far in this particular matchup, and Madman keeps getting the better of him. That's twice directly in a row. That has been the exact entry frag, and it gives you so much security. When you have a man advantage and a shield op, that is such a comfortable position to be in. Expo give him that little bit more breathing room, less angles for the defenders to hold or catch them off from, and it means they're less likely to be on those vertical angles as well with those 2 C4s.
It is strange that we seem to have entered a Monty mirror match at the very end of this game. Unusual. Again, the castle being employed, and Scatto will find that important refrag, delayed but important nonetheless, onto Mexicito. Such a force for GoSkilla. 4 versus 4 now. You're going to be doing it without your top fragger and a pair of frags to boot. So what's going to happen now? Who is going to make the first mistake? Who's going to make the first move? Expo doing some drone work. He's stationed up at the top of Armory, but he's going to be helping Madman to try and continue this reign of terror as he is worming his way through, again, a very strange middle floor with castle barricades all around him. Scato hiding inside of monitors at the moment, a little bit far to take the engagement. Turco sitting on big window, Madman downstairs. Expo's pushed himself already into sight, and he's facing down Sasha. This is rather unusual. Maybe just trying to see how much he can get away with. But with 52 seconds left, he needs some support or some frags to go the way of GoSkilla, because there's just too much to do here for them.
The tasks are lining up. They're certainly piling up for GoSkilla. A kill either way, 3 versus 3. Those C4s will be an issue late on, but there's no chance to blow them. Lolo falls to Turco. A nice move from the attackers. Now a lot of pressure on Gemini as Sasha falls. It's left to Gemini. He's the only man standing between Mkers and defeat. He manages to get one in response, but it's not enough. The group of death claims its first victim and its Mkers. A strong victory today for GoSkilla, who ultimately just about deserved it with their strong defensive play.
Who'd have thunk it? And you credit their defense